Hi, it's Tiffany and Lorraine, the Resilient Mother, with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. This month, we're doing a series of mastering your unique resilience because everyone is unique and there are many unique ways to do that. And with me today, I have Jennifer Stalley. She is going to share her insights on this with us. Please, Jennifer, tell us more about you.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm so excited to be here. I've been listening to this podcast because resilience is something that has been in my DNA since birth, I swear. My mom was one of those moms who was doing everything in the 80s, holding down multiple jobs. She was flying up the career ladder. And now that I'm in my motherhood journey, I have to laugh that I went from a career in the pandemic to founding a company. And I love this topic because at some point in life, we all have to just find a way to dig deep and make it happen. And motherhood really brings it out in all of us. And I'm so excited to discuss this topic with you.
Wonderful. Well, let's start with, what does resilience mean to you? Because it's a little different for everyone. So I want to hear your take on that.
I think about this a lot because I grew up in a home where, for fun, we competed in long distance horse races. It's called endurance riding. Literally, when I was 12 years old, my parents were like, okay, now you're going to ride 100 miles in 24 hours. And I didn't even have a concept of what that would be. But because that was my background, I, for a long time, have understood that I can do hard things, and I can do hard things especially when I know that it's not going to go on forever. There's a time limit. There is a goalpost. It really helps me mentally push through and understand that there will be an end. There's only a little bit more of this, and I can really dig deep and go to a whole new well of strength if needed. So resilience has been something I have really leaned on in motherhood, in my career, in life, in my recreation, forever. It's a really important attribute and quality to be able to do hard things when it's needed.
I love that aspect of realizing the hard things are temporary. And in a lot of ways, you choose your hard. It's going to be choose if you don't do anything, or it's good. You can choose what the hard thing is that you're going to do. And so you get to choose in that moment. And I think agency is a big part of resiliency too, because what you're talking about is this level of awareness of, okay, this is hard.
Yeah.
What do I want to do about it? What is the outcome I want to have from this or strive for? And for me, that's a fun take on resilience that we haven't quite talked about before. So I'm glad to understand this. So can you go a little bit deeper into your unique story with resilience and how you came to this definition of it?
Yeah, so my motherhood resilience journey started almost right off the bat. My daughter was 7 months old when we sheltered in place for the pandemic, and it was quite a start for us. 2020, I shattered my wrist, she had pneumonia, and then we rolled right into the pandemic. So that was a big bang for us for 2020. We said we got all three things out of the way at once at the very beginning of the year. And once we were sheltering in place, I'd actually switched jobs. So I started a new job. It was a big corporate dream come true kind of a job. And I felt like I had this opportunity to seize the moment. But at the same time, we have no childcare because we're sheltered in place and we're really worried about the high risk people in our family and our little one. And especially after just having pneumonia, we were really scarred as parents thinking about our child being sick like that one more time, right? And when they're so little, you'll do anything to protect them. So we were really extra cautious in the beginning of the pandemic when we didn't know anything about what we were facing. And it just sounded really scary, right? And then after a few months of sheltering and masks and everything, we went to our pediatrician appointment. And lo and behold, my daughter was behind on her speech development. And being in the Bay Area, it was 9 months until we could get a specialist to evaluate her to determine the level of severity of this delay and what do we need to do about it and create an action plan. And when your daughter's only a year old, 9 months is a long time. That's almost as much as she's ever been alive, right? So I think I did what a lot of moms would do, and I took matters into my own hands, and I wasn't going to just sit on my hands for 9 months and wait for a doctor to tell me what to do about this. And I thought, well, in the meantime, let's get her some more exposure and therapy and practice and support to develop her language skills. And what I discovered is that sensory play is a lot of what you can do to support that language development in a young person. So I said, sensory play. Okay, let's do that. And I'd be up in the middle of the night nursing her and thinking, okay, tomorrow at 4 o'clock, when it's my turn to take over childcare so my husband can get his job done instead, I better be ready, because the instant I walk through the door, she wants mom, and she wants mom to engage with her. Totally understandable. But I don't want to walk through the door at that moment and whip out my phone and figure out, what am I doing with this kid today? What does the sensory play look like? So I would think ahead the night before in the middle of the night nursing. I go to Pinterest. I love Pinterest. It's helped me plan my wedding, baby shower, all of it, right? All the big moments. And I was looking for sensory ideas for toddlers, and there would be these amazing, elaborate setups that these moms could do with the rainbow rice and dyeing the pasta, and $1 thing here from Michael's and a $2 thing there from Target. And you put the whole thing together. And at first, I really threw myself into it. I love being creative. My whole background is in entertainment and marketing. It's a great career for me because it brings that creativity to life in my work. And so I thought, of course, I'm going to be one of these Pinterest moms that can do these amazing setups. And the first weekend, I dyed 6 colors of rice, and it took over my entire kitchen to make the rainbow colors. I've got all the cookie sheets spread out. There's not an inch left for me to actually make lunch once I've colored them. They need time to dry, right? Then you got to rotate them so that the other side of the rice dries. You got to rotate it one more time for the pieces that you missed, then put them in the separate Ziploc bags. And it was killing me because it took so much of my time. And the point of sensory play for me was to sit down and meaningfully engage with my daughter, not for me to be in the kitchen dyeing rice that she's immediately going to mix together. And now it just looks like, this hodgepodge of colored rice. And it was just killing me. I was like, these Pinterest moms, that's a whole nother level. I have so much respect. This is not working for me. Let's be real, right? I don't have the time or the bandwidth for this, and she's not getting as much out of it as she could. Pretty quickly, I found that there was sensory kits out there that you could just buy, and they would arrive at my house, and I would stash them in the garage, which is where I was working from. So I had my own space. And at the end of the day, I would grab one on the way into the house, and I was all ready to go. Just open the lid and off you're running. And my daughter loved it. And she was catching up really quickly on her speech development. And I felt like a great mom because it was the only thing she would engage with enough that she wouldn't be clinging to me every second the minute I walked through the door. And so I would put the bin down in the middle of the kitchen, and I would be able to cook around her. And I could still monitor what was going on, check in with her. Oh, yes, look, that little world that you've made looks amazing. It's so special. And what are you doing here? And then I could go right back to cooking dinner. So I was getting what I needed as an introvert who was up all night nursing still and starting this big new job. I was tapped out by 4. And I could cook dinner with a vegetable. It was great. So that was really working for me. It was clearly working for her. But after enough time, I just couldn't buy any more of these kits because there was just so much plastic involved. Mm-hmm. And I was getting overwhelmed with the amount of plastic in my house and the number of plastic toys in my house in particular. And one day we were planting our vegetables in the garden. And when I was digging through the garden dirt, out popped a plastic clown from one of the kits that we had ordered that we didn't even particularly love. It was some circus kit that she doesn't know what a circus is. Right. We're in a pandemic. She's never been to a circus.
No.
So it was like this extra exciting, scary, jolting moment of why is a clown coming out of the dirt? And I just said, that's it. We can't buy any more of these. We're cut off. And I felt really bad about it. And I had a lot of maternal guilt about not purchasing any more of these because I could see how much she loved them. It was clearly working for myself as well. And she was really catching up with her speech, but I had to pull the plug. I couldn't do it anymore. And so in the back of my head, I was thinking if there was a more eco-friendly option to this, we would be in. And I looked and looked and looked and could not find something like that. And I thought, when you feel this strongly about something and it's not out there, you can't wait for other people to make the difference. It's going to have to be you. So I started to look into, how do we do this? What materials would we use? And that's how the business got started.
That's amazing. Not only did you solve a problem for yourself, then you solved it for other people and took it to the next level. So it's so many different levels of resilience there,
Yes.
because you're being resilient for your family and finding a solution for what would work, being proactive about your daughter's development and
Exactly.
being able to find that way that works. I think some parents don't know what to do. And really, it's just a matter of being creative and finding a way. But then you took it to the next level of like, this isn't what I want it to be. How can I make it what I want it to be? And you couldn't have been the only parent who thought that, obviously. And so
Right.
you went and solved a problem for someone. And that's a real entrepreneurial spirit, is creating something that solves a problem for someone else. And now you have this business that allows you more time and freedom to be the mom
Yes.
that you want to be and be who you want to be with your family. And that's really, I think, the new kind of American dream coming out of the pandemic, is more control of our time and our family. And it's a whole different level of resilience, because you have to be willing to maybe do something nobody else has done before. But if you do it for the right reasons, with the right heart, and you're solving the right problem for other people, it can really take off. What's the
Exactly.
new dynamic managing that and the growth of that and family? What new level of resilience do you find yourself stepping into?
That's a really great question. Each day I wake up and I have to ask myself, what is the most important thing I need to make happen today? And then I come up with a plan to do that thing. And once it's done, the pressure is way reduced for me for the rest of the day. And I think through, okay, now we can just kind of hit flow and start running down the checklist. I'm such a planner. I love having a to-do list and crossing things off the list. But I have a lot of competing priorities in my life, and my daughter is obviously way at the top. But I'm also a wife, and I'm also a member of my community, and like many of us are. And so I understand that it's not going to be the same thing each day. And I take a lot of stock in evaluating the big picture and monitoring what is like the most important, essential thing to have happen today. And then I make sure that that thing happens. Today was actually the first day of TK for my daughter. So I had lots of places to be and lots of things to do today, but I said, I'm just blocking off this whole 3-hour window. I want to do drop off. I want to make sure we get the picture. I want to make sure I have this bracelet on today for anybody who can see the videos. It's just a little rainbow bracelet with a heart. We have matching ones. I wanted to make sure she had her matching rainbow bracelet, and mom's got hers on too. So
Oh,
if Claire is missing me, she can touch the heart, and I'll get my message on my heart bracelet. And so I had lots of things like that were really important that I wanted to make sure we had time to do. And I just didn't want to feel rushed. And I've noticed that my stress level, I think a lot of us are still really burnt out and have a huge deficit from getting through the early pandemic days where there was just no support for parents. So I have noticed that I'm not as resilient when I have to have my brain in two places at once. And I've really tried to protect that headspace, where I'm present in the thing that I'm doing right now. And my head's not 6 different places. I can't stand having to be on a work call and watch my daughter, because then she's going to ask for something. And at some point I have to say, I'm on the work call. I can't do that. You're not my priority right now, is the message she's receiving.
mm-hmm.
She can't always be the priority. That's okay. I'm not, I don't want anybody to feel guilty about that, but I just don't want that to be my reality all the time. So I try really hard to put strong guardrails and boundaries on my time and protect my headspace. So this morning was TK drop off. We did all of that. She did fabulous. The school is great. I'm so excited for her. And I was able to take that time and really savor that this is a big milestone for her. And it's something that I've tried to transition to all parts of my life, not just my parenting, but when it comes to work and when it comes to home life, when I'm recreating, if I'm out hiking, I want to be able to do what I want to do and think about what I want to think about when I'm hiking. I don't want to have the worry of, oh, I need to figure something out while I'm on this hike. Like, I just want to be present. And I think that's a huge it's sadly it's a luxury. I wish it was an essential item for everybody, but I think that it's a luxury right now to be able to do that and not have to be 6 places in your head all the time.
I think though it's a matter of consciousness too,
Yes.
though. Like I'm at work now, I'm in this role, or I'm at home now, I'm in this role. And you can do that within your home, like you're talking about. There are some practices of you go through a certain doorway. When I'm in this room, I'm this. When I'm in this room, I'm podcasting. When I'm in this room, I'm mom. When I'm in this room, I sleep. Like just to help the brain, because we aren't meant to do all those things at once. It's not effective to multitask too many things. It's a good idea to stack good habits on each other. That's a whole different thing. But what you're talking about is this level of awareness of how can I be the most present for this moment? Because that's what you have control of, is just yourself at this moment. And you're very intentional. I think that's a real resilient trait, is what is the intention with the action I'm about to take? What is my intention for today? Like you're talking about what the priority is. Why is that the priority today? Well, what's the intention behind it? What is your why behind it? And I think we can do that in any aspect of our life, whether we have a 9-to-5 or we are the entrepreneur. That's part of what I get to do as a high performance coach, is teach these 10, 12 principles that anyone can apply, like clarity, how you control your energy. There are some universal principles that will help you be able to prioritize your life every day and get the most out of it. But it takes, I think, that resilient sense of awareness. And I also love your way of planning for it. I think you hear SMART goals, you hear different things like that. But what you were talking about, I think, really allows resilience in your planning, is you have that bigger goal, you have the priority or the why, the mission, but then you got to break it down. And you have to do that plan, whether that's making a list, whether that's having a board you look at, or planning your day. That's very dynamic to be able to fit it all in and be present for it, instead of having it just kind of happen to you. You're taking the action towards it. So that probably attunes to the level of success that you're having with your relationship with your daughter. The thoughtfulness of the bracelet. I just love that idea. My son's about to do preschool next week. You just gave me a really fun idea with that. And I'm sure that comes into your business and your product too, that you're really thoughtful about how is the parent going to interact with this? How is the child going to love this? And so you've just made this whole resilient transition out of a problem. You made a solution. And I love to hear stories like that, because I want other people to know you have that potential to do that too. You may be facing a different struggle with your child and need to find a way. I've noticed my girls had no electronics before COVID. None whatsoever. But now it's a requirement with middle school, going into high school, all of those things. And so it's really been weird. And then I'm a single parent on top of it. So it's like this dynamic of, where does this fit? How do I want this to be a part of our life? But I noticed my little guy, I have one daughter. Now they're all different. Let me preface this story with, I'm glad someone told me they're all different, because I had one who talked really super early, like 9 months. Well, my second daughter drew really, really early. When she grabbed the pencils and paper, I didn't do anything negative with her other than don't color on the walls so that she would feel free to explore it. Well, she really took to it. And she was this kid that I could give crayons and paper to, and she disappeared for like an hour drawing and creating. That's just who she is. And it was a real blessing, like during our divorce and during a lot of things, is that I can give her simple things and her creativity takes off. So now I have a 3-year-old again, but there's been like this 10-year gap, and like I'm trying to remember what's normal or not. But I noticed we have the electronics more. And though he's very smart and taught himself how to spell, and he knows his numbers and his letters, and like we've used them in a smart way, kept them away till he was 18 months too. But writing, drawing, it's not something he's interested in because he's not seen it as much. So that's a problem I've seen, and I've had to find a solution too. And what's funny is my mom sent me these really old books, but they're not old books, but I consider them kind of the old books of like the preschool books. How many people do those now? Like the actual books and paper. And so we just make time for that now. And I think that's the thing, is to be a resilient mother, to be a resilient parent, you got to take the time, you have to be creative, and you got to find some solutions. And those are the themes I'm seeing throughout what we're talking about today.
Yes.
How would you speak to a parent who is seeing a dynamic or a situation with their child, whether special needs or just communication perhaps, or we have a lot of non-traditional families now, anything like that. How would you speak to someone who wants to level up on their resilience as a parent?
So something I love about sensory play that worked for me, but I think works for a lot of families too, is that sensory play is really grounding for anyone, whether it's a child or an adult. Sensory play looks a little different when you're an adult. Maybe it's a Zen garden on your desk at work. It could even be something as simple as just tugging on your earlobe to bring yourself back to the moment and where you're at physically right now to help tune yourself into what's here and now. But sensory play is, I saw a study that said it could reduce stress and anxiety in children by up to 65%.
Wow.
And that this is very sad, that 1 in 3 children is at risk of a health-related issue due to stress and anxiety right now. So I think we've got an epidemic on our hands of too much, too soon, too young. And one thing that's been super important to me as a parent is to help my daughter build the skills that she's going to need in this modern day society.
Mm-hmm.
And screens can be helpful. They can help us get through. They have their time and their place, right? And one thing I saw in one of my mom groups last week was somebody said, with the start of school, my children are just toast by 5 or 6 o'clock. They come home and they can't answer any more questions. They've been answering questions all day long. They don't want to be told where to be or how to be anymore. They've had that from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're done with that. They just need some time to be. And it sounds a lot like that's what your daughter was getting out of all of the coloring. She had some time to just follow her own interests and her own passion and be in her head and have a little space for herself, some quiet time. I'm sure that the coloring can be very sensory engaging. The crayons, you have the sound of them scraping quietly on the paper. It can be a really soothing activity, right? And it's similar in that it puts you in the here and now. You can find that flow. You can be really focused and in your head, and it's very serene, and you're tuned into your body. And sensory play does the same
why
thing.
She is my most grounded and centered child.
Well, she's been practicing that skill, right, of taking care of herself, and so the hope is that our children are learning this skill, and then they're craving that more and more. And as they move into adulthood, maybe they continue to draw and continue to nourish this artistic thing. But it might be taking a hike with no headphones in, just hear the sound of the birds. So it's something I've really been working to foster with my daughter. And I think that the sensory play is a great alternative to screens when kids just need a little downtime, especially through these stressful periods, knowing that this activity is anxiety reducing. The more change and the more difficulty that we're facing, and these times where we have to be resilient as moms or for our children, right? Like back to school, that's when I'm pulling out the sensory play options more and more. And it's something that I'm starting to think about the holidays and what are we going to do for the holidays? My sister is due with her first baby December 15th.
Oh, how exciting.
And we're all so excited, but I'm thinking about holidays going, we better do them early because if that baby comes December 15th, like we're going to be all about that baby. So I'm thinking, how do we build in some downtime and how do we be intentional about making sure that my daughter's getting that time to just be a person, a toddler, a preschooler, right? And where we're not constantly on her about, you need to do this, you need to bring your bag, you need to carry your own stuff, you need to keep up, you have to get in the car right now, you have to put your shoes on, because she gets that all day long. So I want to make sure that we've got sensory engaging activities and play that we can incorporate into our holidays and our back to school time. And anytime we're going through a transition like this, it's hard, and I want to make sure she's got access to the things that are going to help her with that.
And you're setting her up for so much success. And I think what success means is really different right now because it's a lot more internal self-control that you're talking about. And that's what real resilience comes from. And we want that for our kids. Another thing that you touched on, I'd love to dive into a little bit is like things need to be age appropriate. And I'm sure with these kits, like you have to be, what age and development are they at for the right kit or for the right sensory activity? Like drawing, for example, adult coloring books came out, right? Like, so that's kind of universal that goes through, but there's other ones that depend on the age and what they're ready to learn. Like I didn't realize my little guy doesn't have the strength yet in his hands to write, is some of it. So it's kind of unique that my other daughter started so early that she just chose to develop that. And so that's how kids are different too. So how can you pay attention to where they're at in development, but also pay attention to what lights them up with sensory, like which thing appeals to them?
Exactly. So I say that the kids are ideally for ages 3 to 8. I think that's the sweet spot, but that certainly doesn't preclude an older child, for instance. And one of the reasons I hesitate to give a number is because it really depends on developmentally where your child is at. That's the most important thing, is developmentally, are they ready for this? Are they enjoying this? Are they leading into it or not? And I know that it really started within the neurodivergent communities, because this is very therapeutic if you're behind on developmental stages. And a lot of families with neurotypical children who maybe don't have a connection to the neurodivergent communities possibly haven't heard of the benefits of sensory play. And I think that's something that those children are missing out on. Like this is good for everyone. It's helpful for all of our children. And the way that the kits are designed is we've got some materials. It's either Play-Doh or kinetic sand or some slime included as the base. Then we've got some loose parts, crystals, stones, seashells, and things like that to build out the environment. And then we have our wooden peg dolls as our main characters. So those are our mermaids, or in the Arctic play kit, it's our little winter animals. So depending on where your child is at in their development, the early development stages are really interested in just getting their hands in and feeling messy, right? Like get the sand under your fingernails and the slime, how cold is it? And how does it, roll off of your skin? If you're a little more advanced, you might be more into the imaginary play, building out the world, thinking about the social and emotional storyline of what's happening with those characters. So I connected with someone who has a PhD in child psychology from Harvard University. And I said, this is the toy I've designed. Your specialty is working with children and teens who are struggling, like on the very extreme end of the spectrum. How does this fit into your program? What are children getting out of this that I'm not thinking about? Because I'm just a mom, but this is your specialty. And she really highlighted the importance of the social emotional piece, where getting children to really lean into what emotion is this character displaying, and having them expand on that and build out the story around it. So the expressions on the faces is really important. So there's so many things that kids can get out of this. It can meet them at a lot of developmental stages, and it can grow with them as they move from one stage to the next.
Oh, I love that, especially in a world where like we're on screens all the time. And
Exactly.
So having that insight of there's a person on the other side of that screen, a real person with feelings and emotions. Something I didn't appreciate during the pandemic was how some people dehumanized each other because we are on screens. You're in a completely different place than I am.
Yeah.
I'm not probably going to run across to you in person. Maybe someday, that would be awesome. But so we've detached some of that human connection. And what I love about what you were talking about is developing that at a very young age with inanimate objects and different things. Because I think that will help them realize that there are feelings on the other side of this electronic screen. And even though we're using electronics, also just the ability of what our mind sees and what our mind uses in our imagination becomes real. So it's really important that what we choose to see, what we choose to take in with our media affects us on a very deep level. And we need to be careful about what we do with that. It's also an opportunity for children to express safely negative emotions or negative things, and have a safe space to explore those things and for you to have that conversation. Whereas I think as some parents, we get very protective and we're like, we don't want you to experience anything negative or anything bad in your life. But they have to learn that that's not really the resilient way life is. That's not the truth. We're going to fail. We're going to have hardships. So that gives a place to start talking about that early about, oh, I'm sad. Oh, well, what do we do with sad? Or I'm angry. Well, what do I do with angry? What is your character doing with angry? How do we resolve? Or they're fighting. Or it gives so much of a basis of how they will have conversations and dynamics growing up in relationships outside the family home and within the family home.
Yes. One of my favorite kits is actually our happy birthday kit, which is great as a birthday gift, just starting from there. But also when my daughter was younger, especially coming out of the pandemic, she didn't have a lot of experience with big birthdays for a long time. And so her second and third birthday in particular, she really wanted to practice the experience of a birthday party. And she would play with that kit for a week before her birthday and a week after her birthday, because she just really wanted to remember and repeat and really ingrain in her memory everything that happens in a birthday, because you get one shot at that a year, especially if you're not going to other people's parties, because everybody's trying to give everyone space, right? So she would sing the song and she would do the presents and the cake, and she just needed some time to work through it. And especially for a little kid that didn't have a lot of noise or a lot of people around her or a lot of live music, like 20 people staring at you and singing, that's really overwhelming from a sensory perspective. So having the opportunity to work through that's important. And when we think about all 8 of our senses, one of the things I really wanted to engage was the sound element with our sensory kits. So for our Santa kit, we've got jingle bells included so the kids can make the noise on their own terms. But we also have a QR code on our lid, which if you open that up, it takes you to a whole digital experience as a supplement. And we have ambient noises there as well. So that was another thing that the child psychologist had recommended, was just going to a coffee shop. It's something we don't necessarily think about, but if you're really sensitive to ambient noise, going to a coffee shop can be really overwhelming. There's just a lot of input for your ears to deal with. And the same thing happens at a party. Everybody starts singing and it's like, what is all this noise coming at me all at once? So being able to add in that ambient noise, the sounds of the event, the Arctic kit, for instance, has the sound of the shoes crunching in the snow. That could be really soothing, or it could be really overwhelming, depending on who you are and where you're at, right? So that's an element that parents can add if they want to add more sound into the experience. But I love engaging as many senses as we can, because we've known at a gut level for a very long time that our senses are tied to our memory. Mm-hmm. If you look at any person of advanced age, right, when they're having a candy from their childhood, you can see that they're just transported back in time. Or when you smell something like your grandmother's cooking or your grandmother's oatmeal raisin cookies, immediately it's like, oh, I'm back in grandma's kitchen. So we know that there's a really close connection between these two things. And the more senses that you're engaging when you're playing, which play is just short for learning when you're a child, right? The more senses you're engaged when you play and learn, the deeper the learning that happens, the deeper the neurological connections that happen in the brain. You're just amplifying all of that experience. And the more that they're repeating it, the practice of the birthday party, right, the more that they're going to retain from that experience.
And I think there's a healing aspect to it too. I'm a theater kid. Community theater is where I lived. That was my jam, but it was all the senses for me. It was also a safe space to explore things and role play and maybe experience things I wouldn't otherwise be able to experience. And I recently had a daughter who was struggling with some mental health things, and I'm going to be okay with her privacy. But what's interesting is what she decided to turn to. We went to sensory things. She loves slime, and something she did that surprised me was she kind of went back to something that's a part of me, which is music. And music is very soothing, very healing, has been for me from a very young age. Well, she decided to teach herself piano. And what's been very amazing about it is music is one of the only things that can connect both sides of the brain. So it's healing her, and she doesn't even realize that she's doing it. But that's something I didn't realize. Theater, music, dance, art, movement, all those things were a healing process for me too. So let's say you didn't know about these things at first as a parent. You just didn't know, and you have a child who's struggling. It's not too late to bring these things in. It's never too late. Our brain is very able to be molded and changed and moved, and we have all the senses to do it with. And we have some great kits here from you to that we can do. But hey, maybe you might have fun with them too as an adult, or find ways of, oh, how do I bring this in? And bring my teenager in, bring my preteen in. Like, there's going to always be an opportunity to use your senses as a way to be resilient, to heal, or to develop skills, or to role play and transition in different transitions. Like, I'm curious, did you do role play of school with your daughter before she went to school with these kids?
So I totally biffed it on the news that she was going to a new school. She has plenty of experience going to school, but this is she's at the public school now. She's going to be at that school moving forward. We were walking out the door on our way to the airport for vacation to see grandma and grandpa. Plenty of things for her to think about and process, right?
Right.
I had the calendar right there by the door, and I've been trying to teach her the days and follow the advice of Big Little Feelings, right? Prepare, prep, repeat, tell them early and often and all of that. So I had the calendar up, and I realized this is all in writing. This day we fly, it's in writing. She can't read. So I went through and I said, I drew a picture. Airplane day. The next day, it was the dinosaur museum. Next day, grandma and grandpa, two little people. So I had done the pictures, and on the way out the door, I said one last time, we're flying today. Tomorrow's the Dino Museum. Then you see grandma and grandpa. And I fast forward and I went, and then when we come back, we have a week of normal and then new school. Get in the car. Like, what? That's how I broke the news. And I went, wait a minute. We haven't sat down and purposefully had a conversation about this. This poor kid, she went, wait, what new school? So I brushed over it. It's like, let's enjoy our vacation. We'll have this conversation later. She was very present in the moment on vacation. There was tons to do. And when we came home, I said, okay, I had mentioned a new school. Let's have a conversation about that. And she took the news well. And then the next morning she woke up really early because of the time change. And we were laying in bed and I said, how are you feeling about the new school? And she got really quiet, which is usually her tell that she's going somewhere internal. She doesn't want to, she's not big on public displays of emotion. And it was just me. And even then she got real quiet. And I thought, okay, yeah, we need to do something about this. So I decided my tactic was to talk about it so much. She was tired of talking about it and ready to just go to school. I bought every back to school book that I could. I got the Slumberkins Sloth back to school. So we read his story. And then I said, we're going to practice the routine. We drove her down to the school and said, this is how we get to the school. This is where we walk from here to there. Through that gate is where you're going to go. And finally, she was just like, Mom, stop talking about the new school. Is it today or tomorrow? No, then I don't care. I'm doing the pool today. So
she
yes.
was prepared. All right, we're prepared. Yeah. Check. Okay.
Yes, yeah. It helped that one of her friends came over and was super excited about it because she doesn't have to nap anymore. At her old school, they had to do naps, and she hasn't napped in years. So she's tired of just laying there being still when she doesn't want to be, right? And so once we got that energy going, it was like, okay, my friends are excited, I'm excited, and I'm tired of worrying about it. Let's just do it already. So I think we're trying to build some resilience there with, this is how you do hard things. This is how you do scary things. You prepare, you practice, and you eventually get to the point where you're like, just put me on the starting line already.
And we can have that as adults too. Those are ways that, repetition is how athletes get ready. That's how CEOs get organized.
And we envision a positive outcome, right? That's all we talked about. It's going to be great. You're going to love your teacher. Your friends are going to be there. Yeah.
So many wonderful things today. Tidbits of unique and special ways to use our senses to be resilient, but in your unique way for each child and for development and things that we can also take into being adults. It doesn't matter what age we are, we still taste, smell, see, hear, and we get to choose what those things are every day for the most part, or we can choose to make an environment or create an environment that will nurture those things. I have absolutely loved our conversation today. So many great tidbits. I think the audience that we have is going to absolutely love this. Please reach out to Jenn and let her know if you would like to work with her or your thoughts on today. There's a great conversation here that I'd love to see continue in the community and in the comments below. But Jennifer, if someone wants to work with you, they want to get your kits, where do they find you?
Yeah, so go to our website, which is www.meemzymagic.com, and we spell it Meemzy magic. The name comes from my mom. She's Meemzy to my daughter. And when I was first getting this company going, I thought, what feeling do I want people to have when they open this box? I want them to have that feeling that grandma's coming to visit and everybody's going to have the best time. Nice. There's a little bit of support and love in this box, right? And I wanted people to feel that. So the company's named after memes. And we're also on Instagram at Meemzy Magic, same spelling, Meemzy Magic. We're on YouTube. We've got some cute stop motion videos there. They're very sweet, very innocent. One is our mermaids under the sea, and the other is a birthday party for the little dinos. So check those out.
Oh, it's so cute.
I also have a freebie, a giveaway for your listeners today, Tiffany, which is 5 sensory activities they could do right now with stuff that they already have in their home. They don't have to dye the rice. they can just jump in. So I'm going to have that in the show notes. It's just meemzymagic.com/download. And so you can check that out and find some things in your pantry today to get started on your activities. And I'm hoping that this is going to provide that support for those busy moms out there who could use a little extra help and a lift up, and that this is really going to help all of the children out there who are craving this time to themselves to explore on their own terms and just have a few moments in their day to be in the here and now and enjoy the present.
Oh, what a beautiful way to wrap this all up. Thank you so much for being here. Please stay tuned for more on mastering your unique resilience, and we'll see you next time.